So as we talk about mental health, one of the things that really surprises people is that there's no true anger disorder in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the DSM. There are a couple things that are anger disorder, like intermittent explosive disorder, or even the brand new or relatively new disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. The thing is, neither of these really capture what most anger problems look like. Intermittent explosive disorder is more of an aggression disorder or an impulse control disorder. And DMDD is diagnosed primarily in kids and is actually considered a depressive disorder. What's really missing from the DSM is something where people have anger problems, and that is the root of the problem. Not impulsivity, not depression, but true anger. So why isn't anger in the DSM? Honestly, I don't really know. There's a couple of half-baked reasons that I'll throw out there as possibilities, but it's really not very clear. First is that the DSM is deeply rooted in psychodynamic theory. And by psychodynamic, I mean Freud. You see examples of this because some of the places where anger is reflected in the DSM are really connected to depressive disorders. Disruptive mood dysregulation disorder is a depressive disorder. One of the symptoms of depression in kids is irritability. Now, starting with the third edition of the DSM, it was supposed to be theory neutral. And even though it was better than the previous DSMs, it still wasn't theory neutral. We see lots of evidence of this, and one of them seems to be how anger is reflected. So why aren't anger disorders in the DSM? Well, here's another potential reason. And this one's really stupid. Some people say, well, if anger is in the DSM, then people are going to be able to use it as part of their insanity defense. Here's why that's nonsense. One, something doesn't have to be in the DSM for people to use it as part of the insanity defense. In fact, anger researchers, me included, are asked all the time to serve as expert witnesses. Number two, being in the DSM doesn't mean someone's going to be able to use it successfully as part of the insanity defense. You know what's in the DSM? Pyromania, kleptomania. People are not out there successfully getting away with theft and fire setting just because it's in the DSM. So it may sound elegant on the surface, but it's not a good reason to keep anger out of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. So why isn't anger in the DSM? Well, here's another reason, and this one's a little bit more fair. Relative to a lot of other things in the DSM, anger seems to be under-researched. Just to give you an example of this, I just did a PsycInfo search where anger is in the title, and there are 6,038 articles where this is the case. And then I did the same search, but for depression, and there were 79,746. So there are about 13 times more articles about depression than there are articles about anger. Some people might say, what about aggression? There are a whole bunch of articles out there about aggression. That's true, 16,321 articles to be exact. But anger and aggression are different. Anger is a feeling state, it's an emotion. Aggression's a behavior. It's a behavior with the intent to harm. Even though they overlap, they are different things. So we really do need more research out there on anger. Okay, so anger's not in the DSM. Who cares? Why is this a big deal? A couple reasons. First, people with anger problems are often misdiagnosed. Sometimes with intermittent explosive disorder, sometimes, according to at least one study, with borderline personality disorder. Now, anger is relevant in both of those disorders, but they don't really capture the vast majority of anger problems. This has implications when we have third-party payers, right? Insurance companies, because what they're willing to pay for treatment is rooted in the diagnosis. But the biggest reason it's an issue, for a diagnosis to be meaningful, it has to accurately describe the symptoms the person's experiencing. Otherwise, what's the point? And borderline or intermittent explosive disorder, they just don't capture what's going on for most angry people.